Okay, I'll stop this training just for a minute. My name's Jay Devon and I want to share plenty of things to help everyone to be happier on the court. Today's video is about the rankings, and specifically the ATP men's rankings. At the US Open, we're going to try to use a really current today example to really show. I'm always getting asked about how does all this work and how does this make sense and how can this happen. So we're going to use this example that's happening right now because interestingly, at the US Open just now, the possibility for the world #1 ranking lays with 5 players before the tournament started. So this is not a very common situation, so it's quite a unique, amazing situation we have. And with the men's final coming up, it's going to be whoever wins that final is going to get the world #1 ranking. And it's not just because of the US Open that it's an important tournament that they get the world ranking. That's not how it works. So to try to be very clear, to make it easy to follow, there's lots of computations and rules and things like that, but we'll try to get it really clear and show some, hopefully no one can miss what's happening. So at the US Open here is what happened before the tournament start is that we had this lineup here where #1 to 7 were the rankings. So the rankings, because of the US Open coming in, were from Monday the 29th of August, the most recent one. So that's when the tournament start. So the rankings are freeze there, and because it's a 2-week event, there's no changes to the rankings till the end. So on 29th of August, we have sitting like this where the ranking aggregate points here was Medvedev was in first place with 6,885. Zverev, who's injured and out, so he can't play, he's at 5,760 in #2. Nadal was #3, 5,630. Alcaraz 4th, 5,100. And Tsitsipas 5th with 4,890. Then Djokovic ranked 6th, 4,770. And Ruud is 4,695. Now, of course, Djokovic also was unable to play due to New York City and having no vaccination. So both #2 and #6 here, Djokovic and Zverev, are not going to be playing or didn't play. So their points, they were the 2 players out of the 7, even though they're in the top 7, that cannot get the world #1 ranking. So then how it works is, this is what we have, this total coming in at the US Open. Now this is not just for the tournament, this is for 12 months. This is what they're earning over the full season, and it's a rolling 12 months. So then what happens is, with the US Open and all the other tournaments, is whatever they achieved last year, that will become removed at the next update on the ranking. So because the men's final is going to be on Sunday, September 11, that means the new ATP rankings will be set on Monday, the 12th of September. So from 29th of August, the new update will be on the 12th of September, 2 weeks later, because it's a 2-week event. So like a simple one would be that Djokovic last year was the runner-up. He got defeated by Medvedev in the final. So then Djokovic down here on his 4,770 points is what happens is it gets replaced. So for example, the runner-up at the US Open gets 1,200 points. So as you can see here, that Djokovic has his 4,770, but I've got one that's a running update at the moment now that the semi-finals are finished at the US Open, is Djokovic on Monday is going to have a 3,570 aggregate. So he's going to go from 6th to 7th. Okay, so this is showing the drop-off. Same as where Zverev was 5,760, he's going to drop down to 5,040 his aggregate, because last year Zverev was in the semi-finals. So the semi-finals is worth 720 points. So neither of them, because they're not playing, gets any points. They're going to get a 0. So basically Zverev is going to have 720 deducted down. So this is what's happening now. There's this points system where they call drop-off, which is just whatever you achieved last year, that's going to drop off your ranking and they'll replace it with the new one. So then for like a quick rundown, I can tell you is that in a Grand Slam tournament like the US Open, the winner gets 2,000 points. The runner-up gets 1,200 points. The semi-finalists each get 720 points. Then the quarter-finalists get 360. The people who get to the round of 16 get 180. The people who are in the third round, they're getting 90 points. And the second round is 45 points. And the first round people are 10 points. This is all the main draw points. So what will happen is they'll have whatever they did last time change. So for example, last year on the last year on the US Open, some of the players, they didn't have such a high performance. So then their amount of points they can pick up is a lot more. So, for example, Ruud was out last year, I think on the second or third round, and Tsitsipas was out also on the third round. But this year, Tsitsipas went out on the first round. So then his ability, once the day one was over, he was already out on the very first day of the tournament. So then we know he's out from the running for the #1 ranking at the end of the tournament. So to be #1, you have to have the highest aggregate over the 12-month systems of the countable tournaments. So there's a countable tournaments and a non-countable tournaments. But basically, I won't go into that because that's quite complex, but you're going to be having your best tournaments, 18 of those, and then you can get additional tournaments such as the ATP finals. When you qualify for that, that can add. So it's sort of, in a way, your best 18 or best 19 tournaments. So for Tsitsipas, with his last year losing on the third round, he had 90 points. So he was at 4,890. So this year he's going to just get the 10 points. So he's going to drop 80 points down to 4,810. So Tsitsipas is going to be number 6 on the world rankings on Monday. And Zverev, because of the 720 drop, is going to be down in the 5,040. So hopefully you're following this. Then Medvedev here was #1 before the tournament started with the 6,885, but he's going to have the drop off is the 2,000. So that means 4,885. And then this year he was out in the 4th round. So as I said before, the 4th round is 180. So then from 6,885, he's going to be down at the 5,065. Mr. Nadal was injured last year, so he didn't play the US Open or any other tournament for the rest of the 2021. So even if he now is going to be finishing number 3 after this tournament, after he was knocked out in the 4th round, he's going to be adding on 180 points because he was 5,630 and he didn't play. So he's replacing his 0 with 180. So he's up to 5,810, which puts him in 3rd, and Medvedev's going to be down in 4th. Now, the thing to be decided is the amazing situation is they're going to have a new world #1 first time, and also first time Grand Slam champion for either player. Both players in the final, Carlos Alcaraz and Casper Ruud, they can be the winner. So at the moment, I've got their points tally here, showing that, for example, I've added here to what they were before the tournament in this aggregate from the 29th of August. So now from there, I'm showing here 2 possibilities because the runner-up is 1,200 and the winner is 2,000. So this here is Alcaraz, who's got, if he's the runner-up, he'll be at 5,940, which is why he would be number 2 in front of Nadal if he's the runner-up. Whereas Ruud would be at 5,895 when he adds the 1,200 to his 4,695. And then the winner, if he's winning, then Alcaraz, then he's going to be 6,740, whereas Ruud, if he wins, he's going to be 6,695. But either way, all of these totals are above the Nadal 5,810. So that's why Nadal, even though he's won 2 Grand Slams this year, he will be in 3rd place, and either one of those will be first, because this differential of 800 points between the winner and runner-up is going to be enough difference to make sure that this final will be the decider of who gets to be the world #1, because of the fact that last year Medvedev was the winner and his 6,885, which is obviously more than either of these totals. He's going to drop the 2,000 from that, and he's going to add the 180 that he got this year. He's going to lose his 2,000. So this is the situation. This is why if Ruud is runner-up, he's going to be at 5,895, and Alcaraz wins, he'll be 6,740. So clearly that's a higher aggregate than Ruud, whereas vice versa, if Alcaraz is runner-up, he'll go to 5,940, and then Ruud will be out at 6,695. So this is the scenario for all the points. Another interesting factor is really large part of the world rankings is being #1 in the world, is it's not only about the 4 Grand Slams. It's not, they just count the 4 tournaments of the year. Even though it seems in the sport that there's an overemphasis on the Grand Slams, that they don't emphasize enough all the tournaments to be the best in the world. To me, that means you also have to play more places around the world so that you're promoting the sport and product and having all different countries around the world being able to see you play live. So it's out of the whole world, it's out of all the tournaments that are being put forward by all the countries in the world. So to me, it's good that there's a higher number of tournaments played to get the top players playing more often in more places around the world. So for example, Nadal, when he has played this year, he's performed especially well. He's just had a few losses for the year and he's won about 9 matches to every 1 time he's lost. But overall, he hasn't played a lot because of, his body's not prepared. He's to play at his best, so then he doesn't play. So he's focusing more on getting big achievements in less tournaments, which means it's a lot harder for him to get world #1. But because he's had such an amazing year and so many wins and success, every round you get, as I was saying before with the points here, I've got another list here so you can compare the Masters 1000 points versus the US Grand Slam points. Then the more tournaments you get, the further you go and more wins you get, the more points you have. So then compared to a Grand Slam, for the Masters 1000, I'm just showing here is that the winning of a Grand Slam, whether it's US Open, Australian Open, Wimbledon or Roland Garros, is 2,000. The Masters 1000 is called that because when you win it, you get 1,000 points. Then the runner-up of the Grand Slam is 1,200, whereas in the runner-up of the Masters 1000 is 600. Semi-finals is 720 for the Grand Slam, then it's half of that. Again, 360. Same as here, quarterfinals Grand Slam 360, half of that is the Masters 180. Fourth round, or the last 16 players, is 180 in a Grand Slam, 90 for the Masters 1000. Then you've got the third round, 90 in a Grand Slam, again half of that, 45. Second round 45, then 10 for the first round and 10 for the first round, but there's more rounds in the Grand Slam. So you can see with this double the points or half the points of a Masters to a Grand Slam, that there's 9 of these Masters 1000. So Nadal this year, he's played in 4 of those, and you know, he's went out in the first round of Cincinnati, so he had the 10 points there. So what happens also is with him there, he's the high seed, so he goes in and he has a bye the first round and he goes to the second round. But as we can see in the Masters, the second round is 45 points. But what they do is if a seed goes into the second round and they don't play the first round, if they lose that, they count it as a first round loss because it was their first match. So Nadal gets 10 points for that, even though he played in the second round. He gets 10 points for that. So there's lots of little curveballs in there. But so then he's played the 4. Then he had the runner-up at Indian Wells with Taylor Fritz. So he got a 600 for that. But he's only had the 4 Masters 1000s, where you have all these other people like Alcaraz who played the entire 9 Masters 1000, which is great for the sport. The more players are, top players around the world are playing more often in more countries, the better it is for the sport. So for me, I think they should even adjust the rules a bit differently. And once you have your countable tournaments and you've reached your limit, then you can only replace it if you do better. For example, a little bit hard to understand is the Christian Ruud example is he was in the second round last year at the US Open, so he earned the 45 points. But actually his last year's US Open result doesn't count in his ranking because he has other results that are better. But 45 would still be his lowest next countable one. So whether it's a US Open or a different 45 from another tournament that's in it now, that's not there. But it won't change the scenarios that I said before because it's a 45 and a 45. So his US Open cannot count if he plays more. So what I think is that they should allow them to play more, but they should make the reward to play more often is to make it divisible. So say, for example, if I play 25 tournaments and I've got 2,500 points, then my average is 100. So my ranking aggregate, instead of these big numbers and making it a bit complex and whatever else, that would be a lot easier and that will reward for more playing. But you have to have a minimum number of tournaments, and I think instead of 18, they could keep it at 18, but 20 would be a nice round number. So if they could make it at 20, the players could do that. So if you're, for example, playing a few tournaments and you've got 1,000 points, for example, then you're going to get divided by 20 whether you play the 20 tournaments or not, because the onus is that the way you prepare yourself for the tournaments, the way you do your training, the way you're hitting the ball and how you run around the court, all the loading and stress you put your body, the training you do, that's your choice, that's your way you train. So if you have it that you can't get to the court because of all these problems, then that unfortunately is one of the big parts of the game, is how your body is for the tournaments and the court. You have to factor that in a lot. So then there's going to be that minimum number that divides. So that also is going to put a lot more emphasis for people to feel like that they need to do more to be able to play, because you're going to get that divisible by 20 in your rankings. Whatever your aggregate is, the number will be small, it'll be easier to compare. And that will also be really useful in having people saying, oh, hey, but Nadal's won 2 Grand Slams this year, so how can he be not number 1? Because, 2 Grand Slams gives him 4,000, and from this system here, it shows that he had 5,630 going into the US Open. So that means he's only got 1,630 points for the entire year from the other tournaments, so he's hardly played. So rewarding people who don't play, or making some tournaments worth way more than they are, in the eyes of people is not right. But there's a bit of a feeling for that because you see this overemphasis on the Grand Slams and not understanding the system. So the system, we should try to simplify it a bit more and reward more play and try to have it that people realize these type of things. When you're playing these really important tournaments, that there's actually 14 really important tournaments for the players every year as a minimum. This is the 4 Grand Slams, the 9 Masters 1000 tournaments, and then there's the end of year playoffs, which only the top 8 make. So these are the clear top 14 highest prestige and major tournaments. So the more we can have all the best players playing in that, the better it is. And if they don't, how is it that they should be getting rewarded more? So this is trying to clarify with everybody all the different points that they have for tournaments, whether it's Grand Slams, Masters, end of year finals, which also I think they could adjust that. For me, this is a great situation that we got Ruud and Alcaraz playing in the final at US Open to get the world ranking for the first time as #1, either player, and also to win their first Grand Slam. But every year is a full year, and the tennis should be that it goes for the full year, and people are excited about the whole year instead of now. Mostly everyone I will speak to and the way it's being covered is that it's only really about 4 tournaments a year, which is no good. It's a whole year. The tennis players are quite amazing because their season of tournaments and play is much longer than pretty much every other sport. Challenge you to tell me a sport that goes for longer. The tennis players start on the first day of the year, and even some of the tournaments are on the 31st of December, and then they go through towards the end of November, if not all the way to the end of November. So they're almost going the whole time, and all the tournaments throughout the year culminate for the top 8 finals. So then to me, what should happen is, if you're playing in the ATP finals, for example, if you win all the 5 matches, because there's 3 round robin matches, then there's a knockout semi-final and a final. So if you win all those 5 matches, your maximum number of points you can earn is 1,500. So if it's the most important tournament of the year, because all the rest are done to qualify to this to see who's the best player of the year, the ultimate tournament of the year, who becomes the world #1, which is the whole idea is who's the best player of the year and how can you get a higher ranking than you've ever got before to make your own personal best. That's the idea is then that means that when you go to the end of your finals, it should be that you can earn the most points. So it shouldn't be that Grand Slams are worth 2,000 and the most important tournament of the year is worth 1,500. And that's only if you win the whole 5 matches. If you lose one of your round robin matches, you'll have 200 points lesser. Your maximum is 1,300. So when you're playing this end of year finals, to me, it will be much better if the points were at least double. So if you win the whole tournament undefeated, then something like 3,000 points. This means that the players who make it to the top 8 will really get rewarded. And because of this larger number of points, for being the best player for a whole 11 months or a whole season, get a big reward, okay, instead of that there's not a lot of points and people can overtake them in January before the Australian Open even starts, because there's tournaments before the Australian Open. So then that's not really representative of the whole idea. The whole idea should be this. That also means if you award a lot more points for the winner and the runner-up and the semi-finalist, that who will finish the year #1 will always be a lot more exciting and most likely have everyone watching throughout the whole year and much more interested in way more tournaments, much better for the sport because of those greater number of points in that final tournament. That means players are not going to so easily skip it, which is one of the problems that happens in the past because it's not a Grand Slam and it's not treated as the most prestigious one in some of the way that everybody's viewing the game and covering the game, is that the players skip it too, right? So then this way with the points, idea is that, hey, no, actually not, the Grand Slam is the most important thing of the year, and if you don't win a Grand Slam for your career, then people, you know, at the top end are saying then, you know, that person wasn't successful, they're not a great player. Rubbish. So the ATP Finals should be valued as the biggest tournament, and to achieve the world #1 for the whole year should be the major idea for the tennis sport. So for Super Bowl, then whoever's making it and winning that final, then they're the champions of the year. All the sports are like that. There's a champion of the year for tennis. So the #1 thing should be who is the #1 player for the whole year. Then that's going to also emphasize to the players that they need to do things to play more often, because then they can boost their aggregate, especially if you're using the system that I'm talking about, where that they can be rewarded more by playing a bit more and then chasing for a higher position. But having those much larger number of points at the end is really, really key, because such stuff happens as if you go to the ATP Finals and you did 11 months of amazingness and you're one of the best in the world for the whole year, and you've proven that by match after match, tournament after tournament, there's no reward if you go to the ATP Finals and you lose in the first in one of the round robin matches. You get a 0. This is totally not right. So I could go there and get in the top 8 and lose all my 3 round robin matches and, you know, didn't do very well. had to play Federer, Djokovic, Nadal and lost all 3 of them. That's possible. That's really highly possible. But why 0-0-0? To me, that if you're losing, another problem can be solved is when they do these round robins, a lot of times the players, when they lose the first round or whatever, they feel that of the round robin, that even though they're not disqualified because it's a round robin, they get to play 3 matches to see who gets a semi-final spot, is they drop out and then they have to replace them with somebody who didn't actually achieve it, and they pull in, for example, recently they'll get the number 9 player ready to play as well, and they'll come in, but then that means they basically don't have a chance to get into the semi-finals, which really kills a lot of the scenario. But if you're playing, then if you have these other tournaments after the Masters 1000, how it works is there's another category called the ATP 500, then the ATP 250. So to win the tournament, you'd get 500 if you won the 500 tournament, 250 for that. So my opinion is it should be worth a tournament. So if I'm playing in the round robin and I lose, I should get 250 representative of that tournament. So each match I play, then I have incentive. It's like winning a whole tournament. So people are not going to not do their round robin unless they really, really can't, because each match is worth so many points to them. It's going to make them clearly a cut above number 9 and the rest for quite a bit into the first season. So they're really going to get a reward. When they get to the Australian Open, they're not going to lose one of their top 8 places. So they won't be playing against Nadal or Djokovic or these type of players, number 1 and 2 in the world, players before the quarterfinals. So that way they're protected and they have a good chance to go far. That's to be a much bigger reward. Same as, winning one of the rounds in the round robin could be 500 points, like winning an ATP 500. So the points should be a lot more. That's going to make the tournament really stand out because it's going to be worth much more. It's going to be the prestige that it deserves. And the players are going to be playing all the matches because there's so many points involved, and that's going to give them a huge advantage going into the next year, which should be how it is, because that's a reward for having a fantastic season. All right, these are some of the things about the rankings. There's so much involved with it. I'll try not to go too cut into details with the non-countable and all this type of things and all that. But like always, if you have any questions, just put a comment below and I'll answer them to clarify. But all you should do is make sure you're watching the men's final of the US Open so you can see who wins the Grand Slam for the first time and who becomes the new world number 1. Super awesome for tennis. Watch it. Otherwise, what the hell are you doing?